morning and happy Friday, everyone. I hope you are enjoying your summer. It is going by so quickly, as you know, and maybe your kiddos are at home this summer. Maybe you are on vacation or planning a trip before the end of the summer, but we want to make sure that you and your family stay healthy and happy in your backyard and around your pool in terms of poison safety. So, we're going to start today and talk about some of these topics. The first topic is something that we use a lot in our backyard, which are liquid oil and fuels. You can think of these as like kerosene or lighter fluid, tiki torch fuel that you use to fuel those neat little lanterns, or even gasoline for your lawnmower. And all of these products are considered hydrocarbons. And hydrocarbons are fuels that can cause problems if they're accidentally swallowed. So the problem with these is not so much if they're swallowed normally down your esophagus and into your stomach, we see vomiting, but because of the slippery and oily texture, they often go down the wrong way or down the wrong pipe, so to speak. If a child were to unsuspectingly swallow it, or somebody would get it into their mouth. A child may take a sip from one of these brightly colored containers. Often, like the tiki torch fuel, is golden color and can look like some of our pine cleaners or apple juice. And those things can really be damaging if they're swallowed down the wrong pipe, because if that happens, basically they go into the lungs. And that tissue and that oiliness coats the lungs and can be very serious and dangerous and cause a chemical pneumonia. So we often will hear of kids or even adults coughing or gagging or choking within a few minutes of accidentally swallowing these products. So it's really important to keep them up high and away, out of sight of children. Not to transfer these products into other containers such as beverage bottles or unmarked jugs or buckets. And we really want to also talk about siphoning. A lot of people siphon, if you're working in the garage or outdoors for the lawnmower at the end of the summer. And we really only should siphon with a pump. Not siphoning by mouth, because many times the result is getting an accidental or surprise swallow and then choking on the liquids. So really be cautious about these fuel or hydrocarbon sources, as we talked about, around your kids and in your garage. Now, onto our lawn and garden. With some of that hot weather last week and the current rain, we're probably going to see some yards needing to be mowed in the next couple of days here. And there are lots of different things we use in our outdoor landscaping and our gardens to kind of keep them healthy and free of pests. Of course, insecticides are used to control insects. They can be used in the air or on the grass or plants or on the garden itself. And those have a variety of different risk factors. So it is really best if a child or somebody gets one of these products to check in with the Poison Center about first aid instructions. We also use things like herbicides to control weeds, especially think about your bedded plants or your garden areas. And then we often use fertilizer products to supply these nutrients to our garden, our plants for growth. And all these, of course, again, there's so many different types of lawn and garden products. In general, kids and adults aren't having large amounts of these ingested, but sometimes it's a spray on the skin or in the eyes, or you're worried about a child getting into some of the products. And those are all reasons you can call and speak to one of our nurses or pharmacists. It's really important when we use lawn and garden products that we read the instructions carefully and use them as directed. So sometimes we need to dilute the product with water. Sometimes we need to let it sit on the plant for a certain amount of time before we touch it. We certainly don't want to walk away from any product that's in use or out in the open. And if their instructions do have something about protective equipment, such as wearing gloves or masks, it's important to follow those guidelines too. And as I mentioned, you want to allow that proper drying time for liquid products and not letting your pets or your kids out before that occurs. So sometimes that's as little as 30 minutes, could be hours that you need for drying. So it's really important to check those labels and to confirm that before you have your kiddos or your pets out in the area. And then when you're done using the products, kind of the end of the summer, early fall, it's good to kind of dispose of the unused product and store them properly, not hoarding them, because often those products probably aren't in date from year to year. So it's important to kind of get rid of them on a regular basis when you're finished with them. All right, let me just go ahead and check in the comment section. If you have a comment or a question about outdoor poisons, feel free to ask and I will try to answer as well as we're talking here. We also sometimes have pools, whether it's above ground, a small wading pool, or a larger pool in our outdoor areas. And we use chemicals to treat to prevent unwanted bacterial growth and contamination. And many of these routine chemicals are out in use very frequently. Maybe you're adding chlorine tablets or granules on a regular basis. And often we keep these outside of the pool, maybe on a shelf or in a little storage area. So it's important to think about these things if you have small children or pets as well. Think about, that bucket of chlorine tablets. If it sits out on a really hot day like it was last week with the direct sunlight beating down on it, that heat can cause a chemical reaction, that chemical to expand. And so when you go ahead and open that container, that's tightly sealed in a plastic tub, we often get a poof or like a actual gas release of the strong chemical into the face of the user, because your hand and your face is down by the product and you're opening it up. And so often we get this breathing in or eye exposure when you've opened a chlorine chemical container. So it's important to kind of make sure not to open those in confined spaces like sheds or garages. Do it out in the open and make sure you're doing it away from your body. And then to kind of make sure your kids and pets aren't available. And often if that happens, many people feel that, their lungs are really irritated. They'll say, my lungs are on fire, or it's burning. And that's a common exposure complaint from an inhalation of chlorine, a sudden onset of coughing or gagging or choking, a burning sensation, and things like your eyes and your nose. And so for most people, this can be handled at home, by getting fresh air, washing up, rinsing your eyes. And then we also encourage you to call and speak to one of our experts to get specific treatment advice. And I do see a question about what is the best way to store chlorine tablets for your pool. It's definitely going to be in the original container. It is meant to be kind of moisture resistant. You want to store them there up high and out of reach of children. So not in low-lying areas where kids or pets can get into them. And then also to kind of make sure when you're done with them, when you've put the chlorine tablet in the pool or the skimmer basket, to kind of put it away directly right after use. That's a great question. And, most of these, we don't need to use protective equipment. But if they do, if there's some unusual product, make sure you read those instructions when you use it. And again, not mixing chemicals. We talk a lot about this when we think of chlorine and bleaches and things, not to mix any chemicals together, because we actually can see an unexpected and really an unwanted reaction, a chemical, almost a gas that is produced from mixing these types of chemicals. We also encourage users, especially with granules and things you have to measure or scoop, just to make sure you use measuring devices that come with the container. So they might have a scoop, and not to use your household products, your measuring spoons and things, and never place anything wet back into the container. So if you have a wet scoop or spoon, to kind of make sure it dries out, and that they're tightly sealed and capped and put away after use. All right. Let's keep moving. We know that there are lots of pests and critters out there, and we use insect repellent as well as sunscreen for daily use. And so, really, let's first start with our sunscreens. There's really a low incidence of side effects. Some people have allergic reactions to the ingredients, such as the oil or fragrance or alcohol or dye that's in the sunscreen. So sometimes people will get a mild skin reaction. And usually, there's different products people can try for that, more natural sunscreens or ones without fragrance. But accidental swallowing of sunscreen, whether it's the cream or a spray from the bottle, usually just results in mild stomach upset. So a little bit of vomiting or diarrhea. And, while irritating, it's really not terribly damaging or harmful. We do get a fair amount of eye exposures with the spray on sunscreen. So it's important to kind of make sure that young children aren't using those on their own and that it's not applied directly to the face. Moving from sunscreen to our insect repellents, there's so many different types of insect repellents that we use for insects to reduce the risk of disease, including, from ticks or mosquitoes and other critters. Some of the major types are DEET, permethrin, citronella oil, or pericardin. And these really are differing types that have different risks. So it's always important to kind of make sure you're reading the labels, using the product that's best for you and the amount of time you will be outdoors. Really, the concentration of DEET in a product indicates how long it will be effective. So a higher concentration works for a longer period of time. So for example, a 10% DEET solution, or not solution, but the insect repellent provides about 2 hours of protection. 30% is about 5 hours of protection. And concentrations any more than 50% really provide no added protection. And so you want to choose the lowest concentration for the time you're outside. If you're just outside a half hour, consider a lower strength. But if you're going to be doing some heavy hiking for many hours, a higher concentration can be used. And when we use DEET on children or other insect repellents, you really don't want to use the higher concentrations, no more than 30%. An insect repellent of any kind is really not recommended for children under 2 months of age. It's more shading and, making sure they're kept out of, away from those pests. And so just some general safety. You don't really want kids, young children, to apply any repellent by themselves. Often that results in a spray to the eyes or to the mouth, which can be quite irritating. And then when using repellent for a child or assisting them with it, you want to put a little bit on your own hands and then rub it. Don't apply it to their hands and avoid the eye and mouth area. Also avoiding any cuts or open skin certainly would not feel real great, and we could worry there about absorption and continued use. And then a lot of people like to kind of do a 2-for-all, the 2-in-1 sunscreen and repellent. And while it's convenient, it's not the best idea because sunscreens need to be applied more frequently than repellents. So it's better to get the 2 different products and apply them as instructed on the package. And then once you're done, you're kind of back indoors and you're getting things all cleaned up. It's really important to wash your skin off, wash that exposed skin with soap and water just to relieve any of the excess residue on your body. So far we've talked a lot about several different topics, anything from our pools to our gardens, as well as things for our bugs in the sun. So I do hope that you have a great summer. I would encourage you, though, to make sure this summer, in fact, right now, it would be great for you to save the Poison Helpline in your phone today. You can reach us at 1-800-222-1222. And that number is a national number. It'll get you to your state's poison center. If you're here in Missouri, you'll get the Missouri Poison Center. So if you save that number in your phone, if you're outdoors, if you're camping or on vacation, or you're just not near your refrigerator magnet that has the poison helpline on it, you'll have our number. You can reach us quickly and safely and speak to one of our registered nurses or pharmacists. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, available for any exposures or questions related to indoor or outdoor poisons. So have a great remainder of the summer and enjoy your weekend.